everybody. Welcome. We'll get started in just a second as everybody filters in. Pretty full house today. This is great. All right, let's get started. We have a lot to talk about. Welcome, everybody. This is our Heartland education session, Social Media on the Books. My name is Larry Law. I'm the executive director of GLEBA. I am also one of the co-directors of Heartland. I'm joined today by Carrie Obrey and Kate Scott of Midwest Independent Booksellers Association, our partners in Heartland. Please note that this event is being recorded and will be made available later this week on the Heartland Fall Forum website. Before we begin, I would like to mention, you probably saw our announcement this morning, but on behalf of Heartland, I would like to congratulate Louise Erdrich, the winner of the 2021 Voice of the Heartland Award. You can watch Louise accept the award live on October 14th during our Heartland Booksellers Award celebration, so please join us for that. I'd like to very quickly mention, we have a bunch more Heartland events coming up, but quickly mention our next 3 upcoming events are all education sessions. On Thursday, September 30th, we have marketing lessons gained from the pandemic, led by Tim Smith of Schuler Books. Then on Tuesday, October 5th, we have Don't Be Intimidated by Shelf Talkers, led by Kristen Sandstrom of Apostle Island Books. And then on Thursday, October 7th, we have Trans Inclusive Bookselling, led by H. Melt from Women and Children First. So please join us for those. We have a bunch more events coming up. Kate, would you mind throwing a link to our events into the chat? I would appreciate it. You can check all of our upcoming events there. And now I would like to introduce our panelists for today. First up, we have Kathy Burnett. Kathy owns Brainlayer Books in South Bend, Indiana, where she also works as a small business advisor. Brainlayer Books believes people are looking for an escape and an experience and uses that to guide their social media presence. Next, we have Gary Lovely. Gary is the store manager of Prologue Bookshop and the publisher of Harpoon Books, both based in Columbus, Ohio. His writing has appeared in the New York Times, BuzzFeed Books, Literary Hub, and more. I'd also like to add Twitter Rascal to his bio. Next up, we have Stephanie Skees. Stephanie is the Director of Operations for The Novel Neighbor, an independently owned and operated bookstore found in St. Louis, Missouri. She oversees all things staff, events, and social media, making special appearances in The Novel Neighbor's TikTok. When she isn't reading from her overflowing TBR pile, she can be found watching Meryl Streep movies or hanging out with her dogs, Bader and Bartlett. I'm not sure if we have Brian in this session yet. Brian Lohr, is he the manager at Cover to Cover Books, Melia?
Yes.
Is that correct? Yep. So Brian Lohr. And then last but not least, we have Riley J. Davis. Riley has been a bookseller with Next Chapter Books since September of 2017 and has been the author events manager since 2018. They graduated in 2017 from Hamline University with a degree in English and anthropology. Favorite genres include dystopian science fiction and kids YA books. Riley loves to help find an engaging read for young potential book enthusiasts and also says that you should read Octavia Butler's Parable of the Sower as it's their go-to hand-sold title. And that being said, I'd like to kick it over to Riley.
Thanks, Larry. And I also want to say thank you to Melia. She was a lot of help in curating all of our panelists for today. So thank you all for being here. I know it's really hard, all of us being booksellers, trying to find time in our day. So thank you all for making that time. It is difficult for some of us and sometimes takes a lot of time for a lot of us. So thank you. So let's start out. I'm going to just let the panelists answer the questions as I ask them as they feel relevant to you. So let's start off with, how much did you use social media before the pandemic and how has your usage changed since then?
We used social media during the pandemic. Can everybody hear me okay? Right. We used it, but we increased our Twitter presence on there. Before the pandemic, I had just encouraged my friend to take over Twitter for me. She was doing the Good Guy Pete one and she was done with that one. I'm like, you know, our Twitter is terrible. Could you do it for me, please? And she did. And so that's when we really started on Twitter, was during the pandemic. So that changed for us.
we kind of started, I think a lot of my experience in talking about this is going to come from the book loft and not prologue, because I've only been here a little bit. But we had kind of sort of used everything else. We were heavy on Twitter for years before everything else, before the pandemic hit. And then pandemic kind of like pushed us into using Facebook, which we hated using. But it was very good about like, you know, I think kind of we all did the same thing with the mystery boxes and all that stuff. And we had this like, you know, huge audience on Facebook that had been there forever because the book loft had been open for so many years that we were just kind of able to tap into for that. So that was very helpful, like for a thing that we really did not want to do, but it ended up working.
Pretty similar for us. I would say like our biggest thing, and what I would add to this is during the pandemic, we've always used our social media and particularly like Instagram and Facebook to spotlight, like we're a big merch store on top of book selling. So it's a way to like sell books, but also highlight merch and like local vendors and other things that we do for the community, like education. But we really added video content. And I'm sure we'll get into this of like just the way in which social media is like putting a new emphasis on video content. That was something that kind of throughout the pandemic and like still ongoing, right? That we've really shifted, and that entailed like bringing somebody on to particularly work in that space because it can be time consuming. So that's been our biggest shift during the past like year, 2 years.
Anyone else have a input there? All right, then I'm going to move on. What social media platforms have you found the most engagement with? And is there a new social media that you have started getting involved with since within the past year, 2 years? How long has it been? You're muted. You're muted.
Sorry, I can talk. I was just saying that's real. I mean, we find our most engagement personally for our store on Instagram, and then TikTok. And that's really where like our TikTok has been something that at the tail end of the pandemic in the past, I don't know, like 4 months, we've really seen an increasement in engagement. And that for us looks like a lot of different things. I think engagement can be like likes and kind of interacting with your content and sharing out, but also an increase of like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that you were in St. Louis. You're my local bookstore. I'm going to stop in this weekend. Or great, I'm going to like submit an order of books to you, and seeing like video content lead to direct sales. So that's kind of how we've been thinking of engagement, and then try to utilize our different platforms. We've really like our social media director really dug into like, we have different demographics across Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and Twitter. And we had kind of been previously doing the like, everything gets the same treatment. And in some ways that can be true, but it's also a way that like we've evolved of like, what is speaking to what audience that has found us through what platform.
I don't want to have to call
So,
on people.
for us, our engagement is Instagram and Twitter. We have a lot of engagement on, well, I have a lot of people who ask me questions and talk to me on Facebook. I just don't answer them. So I don't know if you could call that engagement, since I don't actually engage. But we do have some diehard Facebook fans. Instagram has been really engaging for me. I do the Instagram, so that's been really big. Our Twitter is engaging, but for a whole different reason. That's another person who does it. We have the same voice, but it's kind of like, you know, you have a different voice when you go to church or when you go outside or when you go here. Those are our two. We have the same values, but she speaks it a lot different than I do. So she has her crowd and I have my crowd. They don't really cross over as much, except for she is doing an Instagram live this Saturday. So we'll see if we can bring those Twitter people over to Instagram.
Yeah, and here at Prologue, I think our main audience is definitely an Instagram right now. I came from, you know, the book loft, it was definitely Twitter, and just like, you know, you'd said, it's a totally different, it's like a totally different environment, and which is like a thing that, you know, I feel like that I've learned over the years is like, you know, on Twitter, like we have not tried to sell anything. We never try to sell anything on Twitter. No one cares. That's for conversation and trying to be funny and mostly failing at it. But you know, like Facebook and Instagram, you know, like we've done really well. Like at the Book Loft, you know, we kind of started this thing where we would use Canva to make like for new releases, like we would make like frames for the Instagram stories every day. And those have like actually turned out to be like very helpful. So now that I've started here, you know, we're trying to do the same thing, you know, and the framed photos for Instagram stories, I think are doing really well. But Facebook, you know, we're really not being very engaging, and we need to do a little bit better for sure.
The only other thing that I would like add, and I'd be curious, Kathy and Gary, is like, I think, I think we were all kind of saying this too, of like, you have different ways to communicate similar information and values. And if I would say, if someone's like working on like, how do I get the most efficiency out of trying to interact on these different platforms? Because I know I've talked to people that's like, I just don't have time to add another platform to my like super busy schedule already, is like, there's definitely ways to do crossover. Like half the time, something that we're doing a post, like we recently did a Sally Rooney thing. It's like, that was a graphic that was made in Canva that then we pretty much had already had thought out and planned out. And so then Cassie, our social media director, turned it into like a TikTok. And, you know, you can take video content that's based off of what you already have, that you're not having to create original content for 4 different platforms. It's more just taking your main idea and figuring out how to apply it across those platforms to maximize your engagement.
100% agree. This thing we're doing this weekend, I made all the graphics in Canva. Canva, we love you. And I dropped them to the person who's doing that. And she just does what she needs to do with them. We do have it set up where Instagram automatically posts to Twitter. We use if then that to do that, but it doesn't always post to Facebook. So that's like, we'll post it sometimes, but not all the time. So when I post to Instagram, goes to Twitter, then she changes it. She, based on her relationship with her people on Twitter, she does what she needs to do. She may not even use the same thing I did. She usually goes with the other person. Like if it's an author we're doing something with, she'll go with, see what they put up and bring that into it. So she knows, we both know what each other is doing, but we just kind of, that's our only crossover really.
All right, well, that actually goes into one of my other questions here. We all know that like social media is a very time consuming thing to do for the store. So how do you guys distribute that? Do you make it a collaborative effort between all of the staff members? Do you have one person that's dedicated to it? What type of way do you like distribute that work so that it's possible to have a social media engagement?
So for us, Twitter is just kind of like one person, just because like, you know, we don't really want to mess with the voice that's kind of on it. Everything else I think can be fed through, I think Hopper or, you know, if then the one that you had mentioned, stuff like that. I think Canva has a really good one too. I haven't really used it much. We just started with Canva Premium not long ago. But I think, you know, the platforms that use a lot of like photos or video content, I think you can time those out. I think that works really well, which you can have the whole staff do. You know, that can be like a daily task, which is kind of what we do here. Is like, that's part of it. You know, go take a photo of, you know, one of us with a book, something. But I think Twitter would really be the only exception to that.
I'm the only person who officially works here. So kind of hard to talk to myself and tell myself to do something different. I don't always listen. I'm not the best boss either. So you have that. But I do the Instagram, though I'm about to wean myself off the Instagram and give it to someone else. I do have another part-time bookseller, and I think she would do well with the Instagram. And I'm going to actually try to do the TikTok because it's short and fast and that like fits my personality perfectly. So I'm trying to move over there, and Letty does the Twitter, and I will cry if she ever leaves. I think Twitter will be turned off if she's not doing it. That is hers. That's her domain. We rarely have anything where she's posted something that I dislike. I think only once in the almost 2 years she's been doing the Twitter. Like I can't even do Twitter. I go on there and I forget that it's not me, and I want to like what she's saying. So it's kind of like she is Twitter, and I should call her that when we're done too. But that's it for me.
We so for a while it was, and we are a pretty large staff for a store, just to be completely honest. We have a lot of part-time booksellers. We have over 5 full-time people. For a while, it was a collaborative effort. We were trying to set up systems of like different ways that people were overseeing it, or like just different expertise that people have, like our main children's inventory person, like knowing, like throwing some stuff up in Instagram stories of authors that were hitting bestsellers, or like content, whatever. We kind of moved to like only a few of us were overseeing what was getting posted on different things, just so we weren't, that we had some kind of plan around it. And then we made certain things like Instagram stories or Twitter or whatever was like free for all territory, where like you weren't, if you had a thought about what you wanted to put on there, like great, throw it in. You don't have to like check with anybody. But one of the things that we really decided that we wanted to focus on video content. And I'm sure we'll get to this at some point of just like, maybe at this point everyone knows this, but like Instagram is really trying to compete with TikTok. And so video content, like I was in a place where I was like, I don't want to work on making video content. I just know that it's important. And that was a conversation our owner and I had. And it was like, okay, we're going to find somebody. We put together a full-time position for somebody that was overseeing all of these social media things. And so we have reached the point where we have one person ideating and overseeing all of social media. And that has paid off for us. We had the funds to flex for that. I know that's not an easy decision for people, but I want to also be clear that, like, because I think there's also the idea, I've heard multiple times that you can't convert video content to book sales. And again, I'm sure we will get further into that, but like that has not been our experience. And I know it's not going to be everyone's universal experience, but in that sense, like, I just want to be open, like that person has they have earned their paycheck in like what video content is giving out. And so I bring that up because I think that if you are somebody who's a 1 to 2 person store, like Kristen is saying in the chat, like, at least for right now, the future is video content. That if you are somebody who has limited resources on where you can spend your time, my big encouragement for people is to at least start working towards that area where you're comfortable making video content.
Stephanie, actually, why don't we just go ahead and talk a little bit more about TikTok? I mean, you're like on the edge of your seat wanting to anyways. And like, I have a personal TikTok account. If you guys find it, you did not. But I've always like wanted to do one for the store, but that feels like a lot of work. It's a new platform. A lot of people don't really understand how it works or what it means. So how have you been able to jump onto that?
Yeah, you guys, is it obvious I care about TikTok? I think I care about talking about it because to me it was a scary platform. Like, I say that because I think we've had some people be like, "You're young," and I'm like, doesn't mean I was into it. Like, and there's also that another myth around TikTok is that it's just young people, and like, people who have the money are not our 18-year-olds that are watching different things. There really are, like, it is becoming a more universal platform. We're seeing more and more people who are like, I think you're not seeing those people necessarily create video content, but that doesn't mean that 20, 30, 40-year-olds aren't snooping on TikTok and like actively watching it. They're just not creating original content, but videos are something that people are really appreciating. And so it is super scary. What's hilarious to me is that like, we hired somebody who was not like a book talker. She definitely has a history. She was a big like YouTube personality on when book YouTube was a big thing. And so it was just a conversation of like, are you comfortable making video content? I think that's one of the things that we'd really want you to focus on. And like, she taught herself using, Google's your best friend. There's so many different ways to learn and have people watch making videos that like Cassie was like, here's how we make it. Like the first time she handed me the phone to like film her, I was like, what am I supposed to do with this? And she's like, she shows you, and it really becomes like less scary over time. And the first couple of videos you make, like you can tell looking back in our early videos, like how uncomfortable we looked on camera. And it's just something that like the more reps you get in, the shorter amount of time it takes you to like even come up with the videos in the first place. Like I know we used to, when I would get so scared that it took like an hour of Cassie filming me for us to finally get the shot. But that's not how long it takes now, and there's so many times that we can just like walk up and film something in like 20 minutes. I don't know if I got off track on my prompt, but the other thing that I would say is that there's a couple, the other two myths that I really care about like talking about within TikTok are like, things don't have to go viral. First of all, I was corrected by one of our booksellers kids that like something is viral if it's only over millions of views, has blown up. If it is something that is like going around that you have more than like 10,000. So clearly we don't know everything. I was like, I'm sorry, I'm not using the right verbiage. Our biggest videos are not necessarily the ones that have sold the most books. Like you do not have to have a video that has 1 million like view count to see it translate into sales. And in fact, like some of the ones that we see do the best are the ones where you can tell it was the most like bookseller thing that translated, like as if you were having a conversation with someone at your store where you're hand selling them a book. Like when that is very clearly coming through in the video, that's when we see it convert to sales or convert to the realization that, oh, you're a bookstore, you're in St. Louis, I'm going to come like visit you. And so that's like the second thing of like, I think making video content feels scary and that you have to come up with all these good ideas. But like, there have been times where videos have done well where like Cassie walked upstairs and was like, I feel like an idiot. I didn't realize this book had a super pretty cover underneath the book flap. And all of a sudden everyone was like buying the book from us. And it was just because we were making fun of ourselves, you know, like it's something that like, Kathy, I think you were saying like, you're going to try out TikTok because like, you feel like that's to your personality. And I think there's definitely ways to see your personality translate. And it's a way to fight back against like what will not be named, of like, that's a way that you can get your stuff out there. And then it's content that works for you for a long time. Like if you get something out there, like we see old videos that go back again, like when we have a new thing that's going on. So I'll stop like sitting on the edge of my seat, but those are like kind of my initial thoughts about TikTok.
Ryan, welcome to the conversation. We're having a heated conversation about TikTok and video content. Do you have any experience with these or how you run your social medias?
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for being here today. In regards to TikTok, we have decided at this point it wasn't something that we were going to dip our toe in. We are primarily towards children's books that goes up to 18, so there is a real market for us. Then in regards to kind of an older demographic, at least for us. To Stephanie's point, specifically in regards to thinking about your production and how much value you think that you're coming across, I do agree 100%. Sometimes the kind of more off the cuff you can be is going to translate so much better to your audience because there's a real authenticity to that. And so when you do that, then one, it shows that to your customers that you do have a unique voice and an authentic voice, as I mentioned before, that really can translate into sales because it's something that independent bookstores, of course, are going to really own because that is what we are known for. So as authentic as you can be, and then also don't look to make it super slick. Of course, maybe add a logo on there or a watermark, but again, don't go too overboard with it because again, that takes away from its authenticity.
I will say that's the thing about TikTok that I like is that it's quick. People aren't looking for a long video where I'm telling them about a lot of stuff. And it's your take on a book as opposed to you trying to review a book. It's your quick hit. This book is this or this book is that. I am actually not trying to use it to sell books. I just want to talk about all the books that I love. And I really don't care if people is watching it or not. It's just a fun, I just love being on there. It's just a lot of fun. It feels like an escape for me. And it really does fit. Brian said authenticity. And sometimes I do think we misuse that word, but I think it's a platform where my voice rings true to me is how I feel about it. And I think that's how you do too. If you're a one person store, you do not have to be on every social media. Pick the one where your voice shines. Pick the one where if you're a long form person, pick Facebook. Doesn't matter if we don't like Facebook. If that's where your customers are, and you like it, that's what you do Facebook. And there are a lot of platforms you can use to post that content in different ways. You could just do that automatically, have it sent somewhere else. I put in the chat that I like the app Later, and I use that. And they also let you schedule TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, however you want to schedule it. You just throw it in there. It also gathers all of your mentions. So if someone's talking about you somewhere else, you could pull it all into this app. If somebody did a video and mentioned you, whatever, it's like everything's there for you. So use something to gather the data and just use that. Was it user generated media? You could just use their content on yours. Like, here's what somebody's saying about us. So it gives you something to put on there, even if you're not there. The videos, Stephanie has said over and over again, is that everybody's prioritizing videos. They see how well TikTok is doing, and they are trying their best to make this happen for them. And so just know that wherever you put this 2-second video, just put it up there. I did a 2-second video. It does not have to be long. My first video, I think it took me 6 hours to make because I was trying to make it perfect. They don't want perfect. They just want to know you're a real person, and they want to see you, and whatever you say is usually pretty good. Just hashtag the F out of it and you are good.
I'd also add that even if you're not planning on using TikTok, someone should have it at your store just to make sure that you know like what's happening, because there's been so many times like we're at the point now where we're like about to start using it, and there's been so many like weeks where like why are so many people coming and buying this book? Like, what is happening? And then we've realized that it's a TikTok book. So I mean, I would definitely like recommend paying attention to at least like what's happening on Book Talk.
And an easy way to also do that is to make it start working. An easy thing to do is like make a section of your store that's like featured on Book Talk. Like that is a huge thing now that I'm sure like people have started to see, where like, again, to your point, Gary, there's like, 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo all of a sudden had a whole new life. And the rest of us were like, how did y'all not know about this book? Like booksellers, we read it, we like moved on to other Taylor Jenkins Reid, but like Book Talk got it, and you can like really prepare your stock that way. Same with like Song of Achilles. So I was trying to find the Facebook. There is to the question that's in the comments, there is a Facebook group out of the Indie Booksellers page, and I cannot find the name of it, but I'm sure we can find it. It definitely exists, where like booksellers are getting together to help each other create TikTok, to get used to TikTok, and I think in every different level, there's lots of support on that page.
All right, so we've talked a little bit about this, but let's go a little bit more in depth on how these social media has transferred directly into sales. Do you guys see more customers in the store, or do you see more online orders where people are trying to like get something like that? Like what kind of sales have you seen as a result of your social media presence? So we've talked a little bit about Book Talk and how it's like can influence a certain, like an individual book. Do you find that to be better for an individual book, or is it better to feature your store as a whole?
I would say Twitter is where we sell the most books. Whenever we talk like that 1619 just had a pre-sign, we sold out within like 2 minutes of them posting that we had that book, and we were doing pre-orders. Like that's where we have sold. We'll sell 35 copies right away of whatever we mentioned. So it's our place to sell books. Mostly because we're just highlighting what somebody else is talking about and saying, hey, if you can't find it, we could get that for you. It's what we're doing. People are always surprised. Oh, you could order the book? Like, yeah, we don't have to have it for you to get it. You could just order it from us. So I think that's been a big seller for us.
At the Book Loft, our mystery boxes that we made during the pandemic were tailored directly to our Twitter audience. And then I think in like 3 months we had sold 1,000. And that was the biggest one I think that we had done.
Yeah, we have had sales. I mean, first of all, I think one of the things is that like, at least in our experience, it's never predictable. Like sometimes we create something and we're like, this video is going to hit, everyone's going to love it, it's going to lead to so many sales, and you're like, wow, no one appreciated it. Or hey, I posted that and an hour later the algorithm changed and like my video didn't get any kind of viewing because like, whichever one did, whichever platform you're using, like had a whole switch. those are all things that can happen. There's also a real thing of like a video hits and you're not prepared. And that is like an actual like thing that I think at some point is like, the goal is always to get there. Not always. I don't think the goal always has to be selling books. I think Kathy said that earlier. But if that's definitely a main point of interest, like, you have to be prepared to manage that. Usually we found like, we had a book that like, of one that went really well. And then like literally we had to buy out Ingram for this book. And it was a self-published book. And because of course that's the one that hit, which was one I was most passionate about. So of course it did. I loved that book. And so you just have to like deal with people. And we found that people are very nice. So I don't want that to scare anyone away from like, we communicate and we're like, we're so sorry. Y'all did such a great job, like pat them on the back, congratulate them. And like, they were all patient and waited until our like next shipment came in. We have definitely seen, I think there's lots of ways to play with different stuff. If you are trying to convert to sales, you have to make it clear that you're a bookstore. There's been a couple of videos that have done really well that people just, if it's coming across people's For You page, that main feed, that you're just like getting fed content where TikTok's trying to figure out who you are as a person and what kind of content you like. They didn't know we were a bookstore, and then we're getting like people are saying they're ordering it, but they're like saying where they ordered it from. You're like, no, how did you not see what we are? So we have certainly like, we've started to say at the end of our videos in what still feels like an authentic, we were worried about it coming across as inauthentic if we kept saying every video that we're a bookstore. What we're finding is you never know who's going to see it, and it hasn't upset anyone to kind of just say at the very end, like, and we're a bookstore in St. Louis and we ship, like, and we'll, like you'll see that we definitely have fallen into that format because it leads to sales. We've also been able to do a lot of like pre-order stuff. We tried a pre-order video where we pitted 2 books against each other. Phenomenal pre-order sales, was also great because now we don't have to stress about having the book to ship out right away. Like, and we just up what our shipment is that's coming for these, and they'll all get sent out that week. So there's ways to also make that aspect work for you. But again, you never know what's going to hit. And then we still have people where like, so one of the things that Cassie does is like, she writes into some of the script of like, that we're a bookstore, or however we're going to solidify that we're a bookstore. So then also make her first comment under TikTok or even the Instagram Reels. I think she does it for as well. That says like, you can order any of these books here, and people will like that comment. We still get people that comment like, how do I pre-order these? And so we like watch it, and that's a collaborative effort where like Cassie and I, if a video is like doing well, like I'll go in and Cassie and I will both be answering people of like, thank you so much for ordering, or like they'll ask like, where can I order this? And we'll just redrop the link and have like a copy and paste thing available, because you certainly still get those questions. And so that can feel tedious, but every time that we've done that for people, they'll then comment back like, great, did my order. And like, it's true. So it has paid off to kind of to build out time for that. Yeah. So we do put something in the comments. We do say that. And we found that people need to be told that you're a bookstore. And we found out one time that we had been saying we're a bookstore, but we had never said we were in St. Louis. And all of a sudden that video, people were like, what do you mean you're in St. Louis? Which of course is like a bookseller's worst nightmare. We were like, how did you not know I exist here? Like, but I'm going to try to not take that so personally. And I'm just going to be excited that you're going to come in this weekend and say hi to us.
And for us, it's been where we've been very intentional in speaking about pre-orders of working with those authors or illustrators so that we can partner so that they can amplify either the content that we've created or content that they've created and that we can then help share as well. It's been really important to what we've done through using indie commerce to create a particular landing page that we can link to from our social media that's built out for that author. So not only are we pre-selling their current to be released title, but then we have their backstock as well. So that's what worked out really well for us. And our primary driver has been Instagram. We'll use then over in our bio link over to that landing page for a temporary time period. We've also, of course, played around with creating then links directly, if it's not a video, to are products that are featured, like say if we're doing a fall display and we're taking a picture of that, then linking over for each one of those titles. Though we have found, so once we link over to each one of those titles, that links back to their particular page onto our website. We have found though, that is the work labor to sales ratio is off balance there. And so just putting a link over into our bio link has been more productive for us.
Great.
Okay, before you move on, I just want to say something about linking. Linktree is a great place to have. If you don't have that, it has my special list that I have on Bookshop. It has my Eventbrite link right to it. And if I'm hyping one particular event, it has that. Or if I'm hyping a particular book, it's on there. It's like, it's so easy to change, and you could use it everywhere in your newsletters. I think that does it really well, Linktree. But also Later, who does not pay me, they have link in bio that you could also use links, and you could click the picture you have and link directly to that book on your shop, so that they could buy it right there without leaving too. One more thing and I'll shut up. Shopify, get a Shopify account, and like your special stuff, put it on Shopify, because then you could sell it on Facebook, you could sell it on TikTok, you could sell, like, all of those places link to Shopify. So just like the special stuff I have over there, like the gift stuff, it works really well.
And I'm sorry for jumping in on something else. Just because we've been talking about being authentic, and something that I think is really helpful within that is not a big lift on us, is like, if you're trying to figure out what is some content you're going to do, and you can do it across any of these platforms, use the education, what we know about book selling. So like, people do not understand why pre-orders matter. And like, all of a sudden when you give them, also our videos that have done the best are when we're explaining like, and we like kind of, so one of the ones that we've capitalized on is that but like Emily Henry had a thing where like a bunch of her pre-orders got dropped for people we meet on vacation. Like people were, and she had to ask her following to reach out to it. And so prompting, like her having to deal with that, prompted us to be like, let's do a thing that explains to everyone like why pre-orders help, who they help authors, they help us, they help you. Like, then we know that you want that book, so you're not disappointed when you come into our store that day and we didn't have enough of them because no one showed us how much you cared about it. They respond really well to that. Atlas 6 is one of our other videos that did really well, which is the self-published one I was referring to. And we started talking about how difficult it is as a bookstore to commit to selling self-published authors. You make less, any of these things where we're really like educating people on, not behind the scenes, but kind of like, has performed really well, because I think it falls into that authentic piece of like relaying information that people don't have and giving them a compelling reason to invest in you instead of just going and instead of Googling that book and finding it somewhere else. Like, I think that leads them. And that's something that is also just, you can do that education with the customers you already have. That doesn't have to be finding new customers. That is just whatever platform you're on. That's one example of one of those things where like we had slides that we made in Canva that was pre-order, and then we turned it into a reel. And then we later went back on that when we were trying to do this pre-order thing that was like, here's like, we can rework some of that across. We use that 3 different ways after we had that initial like set built out.
All right. So first of all, if you have not been watching the chat, there have been a lot of good resources going in there. So please take a look at the chat. There's going to be some links to some groups that'll tell you guys more information. Some of the links to some of the things that our panelists have talked about have been linked into the chat. So please take a look at that. Panelists, if you guys have some links to any of your social media content that you would like to add into the chat so people could have some direct examples to look for, that might be very helpful for folks. I am not going to link my TikTok account. So, Larry, have there been any questions in there that we might want to address?
You have been covering them pretty much as they come up. Let me look back through. I think everything has kind of been covered. Yeah, I don't think I'm missing anything. If I did miss something, please feel free to throw that into the bottom of the chat so we can see that right away. But you all have been kind of answering them as they've come up.
Anybody has any last burning questions, please put them into the chat now so we could make sure to address them.
I would also say right now, while we're here, that it's a very good idea to use your social media right now to kind of explain the supply chain issues and everything that's happening right now. Because just like Stephanie was saying, they appreciate that, that kind of behind the scenes, like understanding of what's going to happen. And I think that will actually motivate them. And it has worked here, especially, for like Sally Rooney's book and like some of the stuff that's coming out. It's very important that they know that, so they're not upset about it. We had even reached out to local media to like get a, we had a little article published kind of that explained to Columbus, what was going on, and about pre-ordering and also that we have, backlist, there are books that we have in the store that you don't need to buy the newest thing all the time, but.
right.
Emily in the chat asked, what hashtags do you guys see get the most attention?
I think that's
haven't actually been.
Doesn't need them. TikTok, I think there's like a specific thing on TikTok that I don't understand, that like the hashtags change every day.
I don't use particular ones except for FYP, so that it goes to try to get it to the front of everybody's For You page is what it is on TikTok. Book Talk for me, I use. Black Book Talk, I also use. Independent bookstore and bookstore I also use. When you click the word hashtag in there, when you're doing your saying whatever it is you want to say, it'll like, you start typing, you can see how many people have used that. It's the same on Instagram. So I try to use the one, if I have a choice between two that still says what I needed to say, I use the one that most people are looking at. And so I also have hashtag Brainlayer Reads, that's one, so that one day we could get Twitter verified. We have to have a hashtag thing. So I put that on everything too, so that people can start using that and then we could get verified, and that just would be so cool. But it does suggest past hashtags that you can use.
Yeah, on our TikTok, the two that Cassie uses like repeatedly are hashtag book recommendations and hashtag book talk. And then anything else, she just rotates based off of like, it can be the title of the book. It could be like some subgenre or category of the book. She did a whole series that was different recommendations for like sapphic books, or like, Sapphic September is happening right now as well. So that's like, that's, you can look at what's already trending in terms of like, if it fits in. And so I know we'll just hashtag based off of like what kind of book it is. Like, and if it's Sally Rooney, it was like Sally Rooney and the title of the new one, Beautiful World, Where Are You? Right? Is that it's bad. I should know that title off the top of my head. And so she basically chooses those two like kind of consistent hashtags and then changes her hashtags up based off of the content that she's making or like what it fits into. But I think there's a lot of different ways you can do hashtags. We have a hashtag that's like the store hashtag that we use on Instagram too. And we have signs up throughout the store that encourage people to do that as well. Like we have a little like place that people can take pictures, and it has our hashtag is More Than a Bookstore. And so I think that's another thing that people could consider like making up of, like, that's not necessarily gonna, like, that's one that you're building. That's not one that's like people are going to think to put that in, but it is a good way, especially on, we'll use hashtags for different things like our 7th anniversary or like stuff that you really want to give people like a specific prompt to. You can kind of do that as well, which is a good way to also gather content of people who are like giving, you can also source content from people who come in and create it for you, which is also a really great way to kind of like, if you're running out, if you like don't have something for that day, you can usually find something in the archive somewhere that you can use to share in at least a story or something like that.
Can I jump in and ask a question about scheduling? So I know with like Instagram and YouTube, the algorithm really favors people that stick to a schedule, that maintain like not necessarily a burst of like a lot of content, more like a long-term like steady schedule, like a post every day or 2 days. does anybody maintain like a really strict social media schedule to help build a following, or is it just kind of as the time, as you have time for it?
I think that's super important. You're correct. I do look at that. I've done where I don't post in a week just to see what happens. And then even if it's just every Monday, every Thursday, as long as you're doing it every Monday and every Thursday, they will lift your content. And I think that's all of the sites. Later does this thing where they will track where you get the most engagement. And so when you see that week, it'll say post at 10 o'clock on Mondays, post at 1 o'clock on Wednesdays, because that's when the most people are talking to you. So I try to follow that when I'm scheduling the posts.
Yeah, Cassie definitely creates a schedule, and that's for her to keep track of like what's happening in which places as well, but also to make sure that like, you know, we're a bookstore that serves everybody, and you can accidentally be posting stuff that like is heavier on like adult, and like we're missing our middle grade new picture book, or you know, like and so it also helps her organize, like making sure that everything's getting the attention that it deserves. And I think it's like, unless it's changed in the past like week since her and I last talked about this, you know, different platforms favor different things too, which is what makes it also more fun. So like Instagram, I think prefers like 2 posts a day. Like I know when we first brought Cassie on, she's like, y'all are overposting, because we were posting like 4 times a day. And like, so Instagram will start to bury your stuff. Like Twitter certainly favors like activity versus like 1 tweet every 5 days. Like it's not really how you participate in Twitter, right? And so we haven't, truthfully, we're like trying to get more consistent on TikTok. And that is more of a result of like, because it can take time, and like it is really fun to involve others from your store, which, you know, I think we could get to that as well, of like how to have other people like help make content for you. And so we don't post as often as we would like, but also sometimes when a post like does really well, like we don't want to make another video because we like are still catching up from the last one, or, you know, whatever. And we've still seen that, like, I mean, there's also, I think I said this earlier, like the algorithms can change on you, and like, you didn't do anything wrong. You didn't, you know, like just because one thing doesn't, you know, if you have like one day where you're like, that's weird, like my 4 o'clock, like we usually post on TikTok at like 4 p.m. because that seems to be what works for us. And you usually know within the first hour or 2, like how it's going and how it's trending. And, you know, sometimes like it just, stuff can change because they're constantly playing with how to compete with each other or how they want to like rework stuff. And so just one time, like, I think that's the point of having a long-term play, like figure out what long-term works for you and see, like, if that really doesn't work over a couple of weeks, then like regroup, but you can't just make snap decisions within the week of like, oh, I posted the wrong time. Cause like, they're all annoying sometimes.
We found that consistency is key. So kind of going back to what Kathy was saying, where you're looking at your numbers from analytics, whether that be a third party or from within the social media platform itself. Do try and look at those. And then once you know that where your audience is going to be most likely there, then try and stick to that schedule. The other thing is, like, for example, with Instagram, Instagram really prefers that you're going to use all of their resources, not just posting on stories, not just posting on your feed and whatnot. They're going to say, well, give us reels, give us all sorts of different pieces within that. So one thing, kind of what Stephanie was talking about earlier, where you can repackage content. So if you have more of a longer video, then looking at chopping that up and using that in different ways. And that way, if you're also using that across different platforms, it keeps it fresh there as well.
The other thing that can be helpful in scheduling, which is like different than I think what is inherent in the question of scheduling, but think about like what's going on. Like I think sometimes it can be like, I don't know what to post. I'm not feeling inspired today. And it's like, just like use what's going on around you. You know, one of our Instagram posts of like, again, and we're talking video content a lot, but also like you can still find posts that perform really well. And they're easy. Like they're not, sorry, I don't want to make it sound like creating the post is always easy. Cassie spent a lot of time making a Met Gala post of like dresses that match book covers. And people shared that a lot. And it was very fun. It was fun for her to put together. It definitely took some time, but we do a lot of those where like it's like 5 or 6 things at once, and they're like slide throughs, and you can go and post each one of those individually in your story then as well. And you know, tag authors, tag publishers. It does cut you off, like if you have one of those where you're using, I forget what the cutoff point is, but I know like you can't always tag. You kind of have to make decisions like, if it's too many, you'd have to decide if you're tagging all the authors, all the publishers. For the Met Gala, like we couldn't tag the celebrities, you know, like there's like, you have to run through different combinations of that. But that you can then get engagement where other people are like sharing that for you as well. And if you're still playing to Instagram's desire to have you use stories as well as a post. And so, you know, like people could have made an Emmys post. You can think about, there's definitely ways to use whatever is fun for you and like figure out how to translate it into book form that can also help you keep on the schedule. And I also feel like it's very overwhelming to hear about all of us talk about all of these things. And I think at the end of the day, like getting started and do a little bit of something is better than like nothing. And I don't want that to get lost in like the 5,000 different ways that you can treat social media.
That's a great point. Also, to that point is kind of, you know, taking those baby steps, take it in one platform. Don't feel like you have to be in every single platform. This was kind of brought up a little bit earlier. What will happen is then you'll start only posting like once a week to Twitter. And so you'll be spread too thin. Really kind of hone in on something on one platform first, and then kind of branch out from there.
And if you're not using a scheduling app, I would highly recommend it, especially if you feel like you're kind of spread too thin through the day. Make it part of your schedule, like on a late Monday night or whenever you feel like you have the most time, and just bust it out for the whole week. And then like the things, you know, you don't feel like that you can do like in a schedule, if you want to do Twitter or whatever, then you can just do that as it comes to you. But we've had a lot of success just like making it like, you know, the very early Tuesday morning, whenever I come in to take photos of the new releases, like to go ahead and get everything else for the week, just go ahead and just stacked up and ready to go. So then we're just not thinking about it until we have to. So Hopper HQ is really good for that too. I'm not sure what you guys use. I would be interested to know.
We also
I think
use
I've said
Later
it
at my
100
store.
times. I use Later. Yeah, it's like Riley. It's like I love
Huge
Later.
fan,
So,
love it.
yes, they have Later Con coming up, but it's just easy to use, and the layout is very attractive. And I like the idea that, you know, Stephanie was talking about your user-generated media. You can get that. If somebody mentions you or tags you, it'll pull it in for you, and you can reuse that as posts. People love when you do that because it's like, oh, look, this company or whatever is listening to me, and they just did this, and now they're going to share that stuff again for you and bring it back up. So I'm sure that like there's a bunch of programs out there you can use. Buffer I've used before. It's just, this is the one that made sense for me being by myself and being able to upload all the media and just spread it out and put it there and then walk away.
There is also, and I can get unless anyone else knows what it is. I should have asked Cassie before I came in here. So one thing about converting TikToks to Instagram Reels, you can certainly repurpose them. Instagram is trying to wreck TikTok, that if you don't, there's like a program you can use that takes the TikTok off, like the TikTok watermark, whatever it is, off of the video so that Instagram doesn't bury it. So just as an FYI, if you're trying to convert both of those, I'm blanking on what the platform is, but what the video service is, but you can do that. Sometimes it offsets. I think it's not perfected yet. We're like, we've used it and like our voices are a little bit off and you're like, really? But that exists as well so that Instagram doesn't bury your TikTok video. Yeah, I think that's the one, Kristen.
All right, if that is everything from everyone, unless there are burning questions that need to be, that's the name. It was Snaptic is what Kristen uses to remove watermarks. All right, so unless there are some burning questions, I think we are at the end of our session today. So thank you all for being here. It's been great having you, and this was a very informative and very engaging conversation. So thank you all so much.
Thank you, Riley. Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Stephanie. And thank you, Brian. Like I said, this event has been recorded. It will get uploaded later today. There's so much good stuff in the chat. I'm going to save the chat and include that everywhere where the video is saved. So please, you can grab that there. You can also download it right now. If you click the 3 little dots and then click Save Chat in the chat, you should be able to download a text file that'll have all the links and all the information. That being said, thank you all very much. It's good to see everybody.